The morning of October 24th, 1944, brought revelation through a periscope lens. Water stretched endlessly around the Japanese submarine I-56. Commander Turihisa Komatsu pressed his eye to the scope. What he witnessed would destroy every assumption held by Imperial Navy leadership. Ships filled his view from horizon to horizon. Gray vessels cut through Pacific swells in formations that defied belief. 30 hulls appeared in his optics. Then 50. Then counting became impossible. His voice trembled as he barked orders. Send flash transmission immediately. Enemy fleet spotted. Size beyond precedent. Admiral Kurita requires this intelligence now. The radio operator stared at his commander. Sir, what numbers do I transmit? Komatsu looked through the scope again. The parade of American warships continued without end. Tell them we have stirred a sleeping dragon. Tell them we are witnessing what happens when America unleashes total industrial warfare. Japanese naval commanders were about to receive an education. They would learn what modern industrial warfare actually meant. They would discover how catastrophically wrong their intelligence had been. That radio message from submarine I-56 reached Admiral Takayo Kurita at 0912 hours. His flagship, heavy cruiser Atago, received the decoded transmission as the center force pressed forward with Operation Show 1. Kurita read the message repeatedly before summoning Rear Admiral Tamaji Koyonagi, his chief of staff. This intelligence cannot be accurate. Kurita slid the paper across the chart table. Submarine commander reports more than 100 American vessels in single formation. Our estimates placed total American strength at 40 capital ships, maximum in Philippines waters. Koyonagi examined the message carefully. His expression darkened as he processed the implications. Perhaps the submarine counted escort vessels, sir. Destroyers and smaller craft. 6 fleet carriers, Kurita emphasized. He specifically identifies 6 carriers. We confirmed 4 American fleet carriers sunk at Philippine Sea 3 months past. How can they field 6 carriers now? Plus battleships, cruisers, and dozens of support vessels. The answer lay in American shipyards that Japanese intelligence had failed to comprehend completely. While Japanese naval construction had effectively stopped by 1942 due to material shortages, American production had accelerated beyond economic logic. Additional submarine reports arrived at 10:45 hours. Each message confirmed massive American fleet concentrations that seemed impossible. Submarine I-45 counted 18 carriers. Kurita initially dismissed this as impossible miscounting. Submarine I-58 reported battleship formations numbering 12 vessels. Submarine I-54 transmitted simply that American fleet strength exceeded all previous estimates by 3 times or more. Deep beneath Tokyo's Navy Ministry, Admiral Somu Toyota convened emergency conferences at 1400 hours. The combined fleet commander-in-chief summoned Vice Admiral Shigeru Fukudome, his chief of staff, and Rear Admiral Sokichi Takagi, the Navy's senior operations analyst. Toyota spread reconnaissance reports across the conference table. Gentlemen, we are receiving intelligence that contradicts every assessment made since 1942. Either our submarine commanders have simultaneously lost counting abilities, or we have been fundamentally wrong about American naval construction capabilities. Takagi had spent 18 months analyzing American industrial output. He spoke with careful precision. Admiral, I have warned since 1943 that our intelligence estimates were dangerously optimistic. American shipyards operate on scales we have no reference for understanding. They are not building ships the way we build ships. They manufacture them like automobiles. Mass production on assembly lines we cannot match. Fukudome interrupted sharply. the Americans lost 4 carriers at Philippine Sea. We confirmed those sinkings. They have already replaced them, Takagi stated with flat certainty. Essex-class carriers are being commissioned monthly. Independence-class light carriers launch even faster. While we struggle to repair damage to Shokaku and Zuikaku, Americans launch new carriers every 30 days. Toyota stood silently, staring at intelligence summaries. The numbers told stories that Japanese naval doctrine could not answer. December 1941 had seen Imperial Japanese Navy possessing 10 carriers. United States Navy had owned 7. By October 1944, Japan operated 4 carriers remaining. 2 of those, Zuikaku and Zuho, were so desperately short of trained pilots they functioned as decoys rather than combat vessels. Americans, according to latest submarine reports, operated more than 30 carriers of various classes in Pacific Theater alone. Additionally, they maintained complete Atlantic fleets, exceeding Japan's entire naval order of battle. "How did we miscalculate so badly?" Toyota asked quietly. Takagi pulled out folders he had compiled through months of analysis. "Admiral, American industrial production in 1943 exceeded our total production for the entire war to date. In 1944, they surpassed that again. They build Liberty ships, cargo vessels, faster than we can sink them. 1 every 4 days from single shipyard complexes. They have dozens of such complexes." He spread photographs obtained through neutral sources, images of American shipyards from international maritime publications. Bethlehem Steel's Fore River Shipyard in Massachusetts, Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia, Mare Island Naval Shipyard in California. Each photograph revealed multiple capital ships under simultaneous construction. "We built Yamato over 4 years with combined resources of our finest shipyard," Takagi continued. "Americans built USS New Jersey in 18 months and launched 5 sister ships in the same period. While we concentrated industrial capacity on 2 super battleships, they mass-produced 24 modern battleships, plus dozens of carriers, hundreds of destroyers, thousands of supporting vessels." Fukudome's face had drained of color. "Then Operation Show 1 sails into numerical disadvantage we cannot overcome through tactical brilliance or warrior spirit. Admiral Kurita will face not 40 American ships, but potentially more than 200, Takagi concluded. "Every intelligence estimate we based this operation on was wrong. Catastrophically wrong." Toyota sat down heavily. The weight of realization showed in his posture. "Then we have already lost this war. We lost the moment we failed to understand what American industrial capacity truly meant." Outside the conference room, staff officers continued planning operations based on intelligence estimates about to collide with reality that would shatter the Imperial Japanese Navy forever. October 25, 1944, 0630 hours brought Admiral Kurita's center force into the Sibuyan Sea. They were committed now to penetrating through Philippine Islands to reach American landing forces at Leyte Gulf. The next 8 hours would provide Japanese commanders with devastating education in American naval aviation capabilities. Radar operators aboard Kurita's flagship detected first incoming aircraft formations at 08 and 10 hours. Initial count showed 48 planes. This was standard carrier strike package that Japanese forces had encountered dozens of times previously. "All ships to air defense stations," Kurita ordered. "Fighter Combat Air Patrol Intercept bearing 090. But something was different this time. Radar screens showed the incoming formation, but behind them, at regular intervals, appeared additional contacts. Then, more contacts. And more. Lieutenant Commander Otani Tonasaki, Fleet Air Defense Coordinator, stared at his radar display in growing disbelief. "Sir, I am tracking multiple formations, 5 separate strike groups, each numbering 40 to 50 aircraft. That is impossible, Rear Admiral Koyanagi responded. No carrier task force can launch that many planes simultaneously. They would need multiple carrier groups. Sir, we are not facing one American carrier task force, Otani finished quietly. We are facing several. First strike arrived at 0827 hours. TBF Avenger torpedo bombers came in low across water, while SB-2C Helldiver dive bombers attacked from altitude. F-6F Hellcat fighters strafed anti-aircraft positions. Coordination was flawless. Execution was professional. Volume was overwhelming. Battleship Musashi, sister ship to legendary Yamato and considered unsinkable by Japanese naval architects, took her first bomb hit at 0835 hours. Then torpedo struck port side. Then another bomb. Then 3 more torpedoes in rapid succession. Kurita watched from Atago's bridge as Musashi's anti-aircraft batteries blazed continuously, downing multiple American planes. But for every plane shot down, 5 more pressed attacks. Sheer volume of attacking aircraft exceeded anything Japanese forces had previously encountered. Second wave incoming, Otani reported at 0945 hours. Radar shows 50-plus contacts bearing 115. Before that strike arrived, third wave appeared on radar. Then fourth. American carrier aircraft were arriving in continuous relays. This gave Japanese ships no respite, no opportunity to conduct damage control effectively, no chance to regroup. Aboard heavy cruiser Maya, Captain Ranji Oi recorded in his log that they were being attacked by what appeared to be endless supply of enemy aircraft. Anti-aircraft ammunition was depleting faster than it could be resupplied from magazines. If this continued, they would be defenseless, not from lack of guns, but from lack of shells. Mathematics that Japanese commanders had relied upon for 3 years of warfare were failing catastrophically. Japanese carrier doctrine, based on their own capabilities, assumed that carrier aircraft could launch perhaps 2 major strikes per day, before requiring extensive maintenance, rearming, and pilot rest. Americans, it was becoming clear, operated under different rules entirely. Their carriers launched continuous strikes, rotating fresh squadrons, maintaining constant pressure. Japanese calculations had assumed rough parity in sortie rates. They had been wrong. At 1134 hours, Musashi took her 19th torpedo hit. The massive battleship, displacing 73,000 tons fully loaded and protected by armor belt 16 inches thick, was visibly listing. Her speed had dropped from 27 knots to less than 12. "How many carriers are attacking us?" Kurita demanded, his voice tight with frustration. Communications Officer Lieutenant Shimada consulted intelligence summaries. Fleet radio intercepts suggest strike aircraft from at least 12 different carriers, sir. Task groups 38.2, 38.3, and 38.4. Our intelligence estimated 3 to 4 carriers per task group. 12 carriers, Koyanagi repeated slowly, coordinating simultaneous strikes. That is more carriers than we have possessed for the entire war combined. At 13:15 hours, Kurita made a decision that would be debated by naval historians for decades. He ordered Center Force to temporarily reverse course, retreating westward away from American carrier aircraft that were systematically destroying his fleet. The after-action report he transmitted to Admiral Toyota in Tokyo stated simply that enemy air power vastly exceeded all intelligence estimates. Sustained attacks from dawn to present. Own forces had expended 70% of anti-aircraft ammunition. Musashi was heavily damaged and sinking. Heavy cruiser Myoko was crippled. Without fighter cover, penetration to Leyte Gulf would result in destruction of entire force. In Tokyo, Admiral Toyota read Kurita's report at 15:30 hours. He summoned Rear Admiral Takagi once again. "Your assessment?" Toyota asked. Takagi had spent the morning compiling reports from all Japanese forces in contact with American naval power. The picture they painted was consistent and terrifying. "Admiral, we are receiving similar reports from every theater. American carrier strength appears to exceed 100 aircraft per vessel versus our 50. Their ability to conduct sustained operations exceeds ours by factors we cannot match. Most critically, they possess ships, planes, pilots, fuel, and munitions to conduct these operations simultaneously across thousands of miles of ocean." He paused, choosing next words carefully. "Sir, we calculated that American industrial production was perhaps double or triple our own. We were wrong. It is not double or triple. It is 10 times our capacity. Perhaps more. They are not just outproducing us. They are operating on scale that makes our entire war effort seem insignificant." Toyota stood at window overlooking Tokyo, watching the city that had already endured multiple bombing raids. Then Admiral Yamamoto was correct. We did awaken sleeping giant, and we are only now discovering what that truly means. By nightfall on October 25th, battleship Musashi had capsized and sunk, taking 1,023 officers and men with her. The vessel that represented pinnacle of Japanese naval architecture, more heavily armed and armored than any ship afloat, had been destroyed by American carrier aviation through sheer overwhelming force. Japanese commanders were learning terrible lesson in industrial warfare. Quality cannot overcome quantity when quantitative advantage becomes sufficiently large. America's advantage was not just large, it was insurmountable. October 27, 1944, saw Battle of Leyte Gulf conclude with virtual destruction of Imperial Japanese Navy as offensive force. But true devastation was not merely in ships sunk or sailors lost. It was in complete shattering of Japanese naval officers' belief in their ability to influence war's outcome. At 1100 hours, Vice Admiral Takajiro Onishi, commander of 1st Air Fleet in Philippines, convened extraordinary meeting with staff officers at Mabalacat Airfield. What he proposed would become both symbol of Japanese desperation and testament to how thoroughly American industrial power had broken Japanese conventional military capabilities. "Gentlemen," Onishi began, his voice carrying weight of terrible certainty, "I have reviewed our combat losses from past 3 days. Of 347 aircraft committed to operations against American fleet, 289 have been lost. Our remaining aircraft number fewer than 60 operational fighters and bombers combined." He paused, allowing magnitude of those numbers to register. In 3 days, 1st Air Fleet had been effectively annihilated. But American fleet continued operations with barely diminished capacity. "Americans have lost perhaps 30 aircraft," Onishi continued, "yet they continue launching strikes with same intensity as first day. How is this possible? Because they possess more aircraft than we can destroy, faster than we can destroy them. Every carrier we damage is replaced. Every plane we shoot down is replaced. Every pilot we kill is replaced. We are fighting enemy whose capacity to absorb losses exceeds our capacity to inflict them." Lieutenant Commander Nakajima Tadashi, one of 1st Air Fleet's most experienced pilots, spoke carefully. "Sir, are you suggesting we cannot win through conventional tactics?" "I am stating that conventional tactics have become irrelevant," Onishi replied bluntly. "When enemy possesses 10 times our numbers and can replace losses at rates we cannot match, skill and courage become insufficient. We need tactics that do not require returning pilots. that do not require maintained aircraft, that maximize damage per sortie, regardless of survival. The room fell silent as officers grasped implications. Onishi was proposing organized suicide attacks, transforming pilots into guided missiles, aircraft into manned bombs. What would become known as kamikaze strategy was born not from fanatical devotion, but from cold calculation of impossible mathematics. In Tokyo, Admiral Toyota received Vice Admiral Onishi's formal proposal at 1600 hours. The document was remarkable for its clinical analysis of Japan's situation. American carrier task forces now operate with such numerical superiority that conventional attacks cannot achieve decisive results. Standard torpedo squadron of 9 aircraft, if all reach target, might damage one vessel. Same 9 aircraft, employed as special attack units, could potentially sink or severely damage multiple ships. Given that pilot survival rates in conventional attacks have fallen below 15%, sacrifice of return capability in exchange for increased effectiveness becomes strategically rational. Toyota read proposal 3 times. The logic was unassailable, and that was what made it so horrifying. Japanese naval aviation had been reduced to calculations where pilot death was simply another variable in combat effectiveness equations. At 1800 hours, Toyota met privately with Rear Admiral Takagi. "Tell me honestly," Toyota asked, "is Onishi correct? Have we truly reached point where this is our only effective option?" Takagi's response was measured, but devastating. "Admiral, Americans currently operate approximately 90 carriers of various classes in Pacific. They possess more than 10,000 combat aircraft assigned to naval aviation alone. We have 4 operational carriers, fewer than 200 carrier-qualified pilots remaining, and aircraft production that cannot replace combat losses." He spread intelligence summaries across desk. Furthermore, American air defenses have evolved. Their carrier task forces now operate with coordinated radar picket destroyers that provide early warning. They maintain continuous combat air patrol with dozens of fighters. Their anti-aircraft fire control has improved dramatically. Conventional attack formation now requires penetrating multiple defensive layers, each capable of destroying significant portions of attacking force before reaching target. "And special attack units?" Toyota asked quietly. "Single aircraft, diving at high speed, is difficult to stop. Even if defensive fire damages aircraft, momentum can carry it to target. Mathematics favor attacker in ways that conventional tactics no longer do. It is, Admiral, rational response to overwhelming material disadvantage." Formal authorization for organized special attack operations was issued on October 28, 1944. Order's preamble, drafted by Admiral Toyota himself, was brutally honest about circumstances that made such measures necessary. Enemy's material superiority has reached levels that negate effectiveness of conventional tactics. Standard attack methods result in unacceptable losses without proportional damage to enemy forces. Special attack operations represent tactical adaptation to numerical realities we cannot otherwise overcome. On October 29, 1944, first official kamikaze units launched from Philippine airfields. 24 pilots took off knowing they would not return. 13 reached American carrier formations, 5 struck vessels, sinking escort carrier St. Lo and damaging 3 others. Tactical exchange ratio seemed to favor Japanese. 5 ships hit for 24 aircraft lost versus conventional attacks that might expend 50 aircraft to damage 1 ship. But this calculation ignored fundamental reality. Japan was trading irreplaceable trained pilots for damage to fleet that America could repair and replace within months. At Mabalacat Airfield, Flight Operations Officer Lieutenant Yuno Koafumahara watched kamikaze pilots depart and recorded in his diary that they sent these men to die because they could not afford to send them to fight and return. Americans had forced them to this by making survival itself luxury they could not sustain. This was what defeat looked like, not moment of surrender, but moment when only viable tactic was to stop trying to survive. In Washington, D.C., American naval intelligence officers analyzed reports of new Japanese tactics with mixture of horror and grim recognition. One intelligence summary stated that enemy employment of suicide attacks represented not fanaticism, but rational adaptation to resource constraints imposed. They had calculated that Americans could absorb their conventional attacks indefinitely. This new approach suggested they understood they were losing and were attempting to maximize casualties before inevitable defeat. Kamikaze strategy would sink or damage hundreds of American vessels over following months. But it would not change war's outcome. For every ship damaged, American shipyards launched replacements. For every casualty inflicted, American training programs graduated new sailors and pilots. Japanese commanders had discovered cruelest truth of industrial warfare. Even suicide, employed systematically as military tactic, could not overcome enemy whose production capacity exceeded entire national economy. November 15, 1944, brought compilation by Japanese Naval General Staff of what would become known internally as Assessment of Material Reality. This classified document represented Imperial Japanese Navy's final honest evaluation of their strategic position. Rear Admiral Takagi, who authored primary analysis, began document with statement that would have been considered defeatist treason just months earlier. Imperial Japanese Navy has been defeated not primarily through tactical failures or insufficient warrior spirit, but through fundamental miscalculation of enemy industrial capacity and our inability to wage sustained industrial warfare against opponent possessing overwhelming material advantages. Document systematically dismantled every strategic assumption that had guided Japanese naval planning since 1941. Each section was supported by exhaustive data that painted undeniable picture of comprehensive defeat. Section 1 addressed carrier aviation. As of November 1944, United States Navy operates approximately 90 carriers of all classes. Imperial Japanese Navy possesses 4 operational carriers, 2 of which lack sufficient aircraft and trained pilots for combat operations. American monthly carrier aircraft production exceeds 3,000 units. Japanese production approximates 400 units monthly, with declining quality due to material shortages and loss of experienced factory workers to military service. Section 2 analyzed pilot training. American pilot training programs graduate approximately 2,000 qualified naval aviators monthly from facilities operating across continental United States. Flight training hours average 600 hours before combat assignment. Japanese pilot training has been reduced to 200 hours or less due to fuel shortages and loss of experienced instructors. We are producing pilots with insufficient skills to survive against experienced American aviators, creating self-reinforcing cycle of declining effectiveness. Section 3 examined shipbuilding capacity with brutal honesty. During 1944, American shipyards commissioned 9 fleet carriers, 22 escort carriers, 4 battleships, 7 heavy cruisers, 13 light cruisers, and more than 200 destroyers and destroyer escorts. Japanese shipyards commissioned 0 carriers, 0 battleships, 2 light cruisers, and 47 smaller vessels. Furthermore, American construction rates are accelerating, while Japanese rates decline due to material shortages, labor shortages, and bombing of industrial facilities. Admiral Toyota convened final conference on November 20th, 1944, with Navy General Staff and representatives from Supreme War Council. What he revealed left even most optimistic officers shaken. "Gentlemen, we must confront facts without illusion," Toyota began, displaying chart showing comparative naval strength. On December 7, 1941, when we struck Pearl Harbor, Imperial Japanese Navy possessed approximate numerical parity with American Pacific forces. We held qualitative advantages in night combat, torpedo warfare, and carrier aviation. We believed these advantages, combined with fighting spirit and tactical excellence, would enable us to achieve decisive victories before American industrial mobilization could negate our position. He paused, allowing past tense to register. 3 years later, Americans operate more ships in Pacific than we possessed at war's beginning. They have not merely replaced their losses, they have built entirely new fleets while simultaneously repairing damaged vessels. Most critically, qualitative advantages we possessed have been systematically eliminated through American technical development and training programs. Lieutenant General Yoshijiro Umezu, representing Army General Staff, interrupted. "Surely our ground forces in fortified positions throughout Pacific will hold. Will be systematically reduced through overwhelming firepower," Toyota stated flatly. "Americans are not constrained by ammunition shortages. Their battleships can fire thousands of shells in preparation for amphibious assaults. Their carrier aircraft can maintain continuous air support. They possess unlimited logistics capability. Fuel, ammunition, spare parts, medical supplies, all delivered by merchant fleets that exceed our entire Navy in tonnage." He displayed reconnaissance photographs of American forward bases at Ulithi Atoll and Manus Island. Images showed anchorages crowded with hundreds of vessels. Fleet carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, transports, supply ships, repair vessels, hospital ships. Entire fleets assembled in locations that had not existed as military bases 2 years earlier. "These forward bases demonstrate American logistical capabilities we cannot match," Toyota continued. "They have constructed complete naval infrastructure. Fuel storage, ammunition dumps, repair facilities, airfields at locations that were empty atolls months earlier. They can sustain offensive operations indefinitely from these bases while our forces struggle with supply shortages even in home waters." Implications were inescapable. Captain Oye presented updated intelligence estimates. American merchant ship construction in 1944 will exceed 1,100 vessels, totaling more than 10 million tons. Our submarine force has sunk approximately 200 American merchants this year, representing less than 2% of their construction rate. We cannot sink ships faster than they build them. We cannot destroy supplies faster than they produce them. We cannot inflict casualties faster than they replace them. In silence that followed, Admiral Toyota spoke conclusion that everyone present understood, but few had been willing to articulate. "Gentlemen, we are not losing this war through insufficient courage or inadequate tactics. We are losing because we challenged industrial power whose capacity exceeds our own by orders of magnitude we failed to comprehend. Every battle we fight, every ship we lose, every pilot killed, these losses are irreplaceable. American losses are replaced within weeks or months." He gestured to documents and charts covering conference table. "This is what modern industrial warfare means. Victory belongs not to bravest warriors or most skilled commanders, but to nation capable of producing more ships, more planes, more tanks, more ammunition, more of everything faster than enemy can destroy them. We are fighting enemy whose industrial output exceeds our total economy." Mathematics, not courage, determines outcome. Conference adjourned with recommendation that would reach Emperor Hirohito within days. Imperial Japanese Navy could no longer meaningfully contest American naval supremacy in Pacific. What had begun at Pearl Harbor with Japanese carriers striking American battleships would end with American industrial might having built fleets so vast the Japanese forces could only delay, not prevent, inevitable advance toward home islands. On November 25, 1944, Admiral Takagi wrote in his private journal that they had seen American fleet and finally understood what they had awakened. Not simply ships and planes, but industrial civilization that treats warfare as production problem to be solved with assembly lines and logistics networks. Against such enemy, warrior spirit becomes meaningless. War was lost before it began. They simply did not know it until they saw what America could build when fully committed to their destruction. Document that Japanese generals and admirals had compiled would remain classified for decades, but its conclusions were already manifesting in endless streams of American ships approaching Japanese-held islands, in carrier aircraft that darkened Pacific skies, and in mathematical certainty that no amount of Japanese courage could overcome American industrial supremacy. They had seen American Pacific Fleet, and in seeing it, they had finally understood magnitude of their miscalculation.